All right, so hello everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Zev. I'm the VP of Marketing. With me, we have Chris Bekong, Senior Engineer, join me today to present this topic of visibility and security in the financial sector. Actually, we have also Scott Thompson. He's responsible for the channel management, so he's on the call as well. In terms of agenda, we'll start by reviewing the big picture of the market, critical challenges, and move to real case study examples. Just to keep the natural flow of this webinar, we will reserve the Q&A. I muted everyone, so we'll reserve the Q&A section towards the end. Feel free anyway to place your questions in the Zoom chat so we can see them, reply them at the end of this webinar. Before starting, maybe just a quick 60 seconds on Niagara Networks. So the company was founded in 2017, basically 4 years ago. We're self-funded and owned by Interface Master Technologies, our parent company that is active over 20 years. We're based out of Silicon Valley and design develop locally our entire range of network visibility offering. We have over 300 customers, span multinational service providers, large enterprises and government agencies. Another important fact that I would like to mention here is that our Technology Alliance program expanded substantially over the last year, and we have over 25 cybersecurity and networking vendors that actually integrate our solutions in projects. For the list of the partners, I would suggest everyone to visit the website partner section. You could see the reference names, so you can see which one of them you are working or have interaction with. In terms of our solutions, we typically deployed in core networks as a mediation layer between networks and cybersecurity tools, typically serve network security operations and enable them with packet data visibility and network intelligence. So with this 60 seconds about Niagara, I would like to move to the big picture. At least we'll start from top down. And we'll start from the fact that financial industry is highly sophisticated and really well resourced. In fact, the major goal of this sector is making money in a really regulated framework of public and private markets. Today, especially, we see it in anywhere, anytime, that's the framework. Achieving these goals, so investments in technology tend to be very high. In fact, the financial market is typically 2-3 years ahead of the curve compared to the other sectors. We can consider them as really early adapter of new technologies. So usually sophistication and well-resourced is going very well in this specific sector. Lately, the financial innovation moves really in massive cycles, and in fact, we could witness the new stage of financial industry disruption. You could see it with the fintech stack, new regulatory frameworks, and we could see also accelerated pace of IT architecture that really connect to anything, anywhere. And specifically, we could see that this is over API distributed model. From network security aspect, the spectrum of attack surface and certainly vectors of attack increased substantially during the last 24 months. And you could see it in the volume, velocity, and certainly the variety. So given the fact that financial infrastructure is a critical infrastructure that typically should be always secure, resilient, and with high precision in how financial data, transactions, and privacy are handled. So the fact, if you look at the right side of this slide, basically according to VMware research, the number of attacks, the attacks against financial sector increased by a magnitude of 288%. And not surprisingly, to see also the latest report by Boston Consulting Group. They in fact summarized the financial firms are 300 times as likely as other companies to be targeted by the cyber attack. So yeah, 300 times, that's a substantial change in the arena. So let's zoom into the network security aspects, and to understand the strategic challenges. We had many interactions over the past 2 years with CIOs, CTOs, and CISOs, and since this roles leaders see the big picture specifically and need to execute their strategy, we try to synthesize the various challenges into 3 major critical areas. Obviously, our focus was on the security and visibility factors. So let's start from number 1. The complexity in the security stack will not fade away. Practically due to increased demand of financial service resiliency, many tools are required to cover the attack surface and the dynamic vectors of attack. So the number of heterogeneous tools required by security and network operations, and they continue to be inflated. So security stack is getting bigger for sure. The number 2, the new norm in IT architecture have the hybrid infrastructure and operational processes. And in fact, the distribution of data traffic across north, south, east, west, cloud, on-prem, all have substantial aspect in how NetOps and SecOps operate their environment, and specifically how they collaborate in a new agile mode to avoid different types of blind spots and obstacles in the way. They typically require deep, and this is the area that really would like to highlight, and Chris will focus on them, the requirement of deep access to packet data to inspect, identify, correlate statuses, alarms, trends, and behaviors across the entire security stack, which is, as I mentioned previously, getting bigger. The number 3, to sustain the super cycle upgrades, there is substantial demand to optimize and match capacities, services, and tools, especially when we look at the magnitude of the financial sector. And regardless, and it's important to mention here, that regardless of new massive usage of artificial intelligence, machine learning, if the IT tools will not get the right traffic to the right tool and adequate capacity, we might face denial of service attack, blind spots, overbuild of infrastructure that might be inefficient, neither for short, midterm, and long plan. So moving to operational, or staying on the operational challenges, most of the CIOs and CISOs are familiar with the contradicting mindset of IT and security. And typically they create directive of common goals for those teams, which typically defined in 2 key objectives. The first, really to sustain the maximum security posture as attack surface keep on expanding. The second one is really to ensure that business continuity, especially here we see mission critical environment, but at the same time to keep the agility enablement in light of the changes in the IT environment that become very elastic. So as previously mentioned, the wide spectrum of attack surface and sophistication of attacks pose challenges. Known fact is that security detection takes too long, and in many cases the visibility factor can save time to detect security holes, breaches, and at least when we look at our capability or doing those mitigation to reduce the time of detection, that's important in all aspects. The second point is that the modern IT architecture, we can see that traditional perimeter is literally vanishing, or at least mitigated and expanding the attack surface. And we could see additionally that the blind spot increased with respect to data in motion. Think about most of the financial infrastructure is encrypted, or even 100% of the, and so is the privacy regulation that required. And actually, we have specific case study that Chris will cover. But the same flow, we need to admit that the same flow of encrypted data method is now used also by the attackers, which basically can inject malware, command control, and other acceleration techniques. So operations team need more touch points, sensors, and visibility expansion specifically when we're looking on at those virtual and physical hybrid infrastructure that I mentioned previously. The third point is related to the tool's efficiency. As I discussed in the previous slide, if the sudden attack is above your tool detection capacity, so there is a slim chance you will be protected. And big challenge it sounds like cliche, but the big challenge is really getting the right traffic to the security tools, both for inline and out of band monitoring of those tools. And practically speaking, you cannot secure what you cannot see. I think this is anyone that dealing with the visibility factor of the infrastructure is really familiar with this slogan. And we need to admit that as networks become more sophisticated, it's a complex process to do it right. So from our experience and our customers' experience, placing network intelligence solution in the right architecture that can serve network and security operation, you can save time, operational expenses, and definitely the number of tools and the accurate capacities that can save significant CapEx. All right, so Chris actually will move and dive into scope of applications, the aspects of visibility and the case studies. So Chris, you on mute or?
Yep, go for it. Okay. Next slide, please.
Good, right.
So as you can see here, in terms of the financial sector, this is a very typical network architecture that they will implement. It's very similar to most large companies, Fortune 100 and so forth, where they have, for example, multiple users accessing their headquarters or data center, whether it's workers from home, e-commerce customers, even IoT type devices, also connected to our remote branches or offices. Obviously, it's going to go through several colos for some of their database servers and so forth, and eventually also as well as the cloud. So they're running a very, very extreme high performance network where everything is connected. This obviously, as the Dev mentioned, will result in a large attack surface, which every day it continues to grow significantly. So security and high availability of their services is utmost paramount. So the operational stress on their network security teams results in it becomes very, very high. So they need all the help that they can get in terms of solution that is agile, that can be easily automated, and as well as be able to scale. There's a lot of new dynamic services that forces them to a new paradigm of visibility and control of that network traffic, as well as integrating those tools. So they have to try to maintain the highest levels of security and performance, all while they have to comply to various federal and local regulations specifically for the financial industry. Next slide, please. So in terms of having a visibility solution, once a network architect once told me that the truth will always be in the network traffic, right? Everything is passing through their network, so everything, the truth essentially in terms of what's happening in their network, whether it's for business related or non-business related, it'll be all in their network traffic. So how do you get the truth without disrupting critical services? Also, in this recent times, with the COVID and everyone being forced to work from home or remotely, there's significant amount of the VPNs being created that requires access to their network infrastructure, whether it's to their homegrown applications, regular office applications, and so forth. And they need visibility to all of this, all these VPN sessions to be able to send that traffic to an endpoint detect and response solutions, for example, like FireEye, Thousand Eyes, Darktrace, Flowmon, and so forth, to detect any anomalies and ensure that access is closely monitored. So all of those tools, as good as they all require the truth. So you need a visibility solution that's highly agile, scalable, and reliable. Also seamlessly for both inline and out-of-band network tools, which requires that network traffic. Next slide, please. So in addition to that low-level packet broker features in terms of being able to, for example, tap, filter, or aggregate that traffic, you also need advanced features that allows for more granular packet intelligence, which essentially optimizes the tool efficiency, accuracy, which is very, very important to detect any anomalies accurately and decrease the amount of false positives that happen, and overall performance of those tools, all while extending the life with fewer technology cycles and increasing the capital expense return on investment on those existing network tools. So you need, for example, some of these bullet points, I'm not going to go through every single one here, but be able to just identify very, very granularly in terms of the deep packet lookup in terms of what, and identify what traffic is of interest, for example, because in most cases, not all the tools require 100% of the traffic. Basically, you can oversaturate or decrease that performance significantly. And as Zev mentioned, what you can't see, you're not going to be able to detect. So you're oversaturating that tool, but there's a potential now of breaches that some of that traffic, malicious traffic can pass through. So having a visibility solution that complements those advanced networking tools definitely significantly will increase their accuracy as well as the performance. Next slide, please. So we'll be focusing on for these major cases. So you need a visibility solution that's full-featured, seamless integration, and highly customizable in terms of ease of use as well. Enables these financial institutions to protect their critical network assets. So going from number one, infrastructure and security monitoring. So this is the typical or normal implementation of a visibility solution and to complement their security stack. For example, being able to tap anywhere in parts of the network infrastructure, aggregate that, and as I've mentioned, being able to filter specific traffic of interest and optimizing the tool efficiency. In some cases, well, in financial institutions, everything is pretty much encrypted. So the ability to decrypt that traffic as well is a big offload to some of these networking tools. In terms of the inline tools, such as firewalls, IPS, for example, they also require a what we call fail to wire type of protection, because high availability is one of the paramount requirements for financial institutions. They need high availability as much as possible. So providing a protection against any single device or a single point of failure in their security stack is critical in terms of deploying visibility solutions. In addition to that is being able to scale the security stack in terms of adding, for example, IPS capacity without disrupting any critical services. And this, the Niagara solutions allows them to do that. In terms of packet delivery and delivering the correct data to the correct tool, as well as being able to extract and generate metadata, for example, into their network tools and being integrated in the same platform is extremely important for them as well, to allow them to do deeper and more accurate analytics. And then the last point is in terms of cyber testing, allows them to do penetration testing of their current security stack, and having a visibility solution that allows them to do that is very, very critical. There's one security company, they changed names and so forth, but you guys may have recognize them. It's Symantec. They actually use our solutions in terms of doing testing in their laboratories, and this is why it's so important to have that capability. So there's so many different variations, but these will be the main focus for the use cases. Next slide. So we're going to be going over to the real case studies here. As you know, financial institutions, there's quite a bit of laws and regulations. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act or SOX. There's Graham-Leach Bliley Act, and then also the PCI DSS standard to protect critical information or sensitive information from users. So these are just a few examples of the complexity financial institutions have to face regularly when it comes to cybersecurity. This is where having a robust network visibility solution becomes very, very critical for them. All right, first use case. So this first use case is they're using the Niagara solutions as a data center gatekeeper. They're very large banks. They're one of the largest in North America. It says here the top 10. I think they're right in there in terms of the top 10. But they have offices throughout the world. They have data centers deployed globally. So the main focus here was in terms of having a gatekeeper for all of their inline security and out-of-band monitoring solutions, but in a high availability data center architecture to upscale their security stack. You see, they have implemented an active and standby across all their data centers to protect any failures that happens. And also, in terms of having a gatekeeper, allows them to basically increase the number of security appliances that can be seamlessly integrated prior to entering their network. So this is essentially becomes the gatekeeper. They required high availability for all the inline devices so that there is no point of failure, as I mentioned, while simultaneously getting all of that traffic and sent to a real-time monitoring network tools. So some of these tools, for example, they're using the Cisco Firepower next generation firewalls. They have included in that system, intrusion detection, as well as intrusion prevention system. They have the FireEye manage, detect, and response. As you can see here, there's actually multiple FireEye platforms that is being load balanced so that all the traffic does not saturate a single appliance. And also protects it so that if any of those FireEye needs to be replaced or fails, the traffic is redistributed across the active connections. So this allows for very, very granular control of traffic flows, as well as performing network monitoring, forensics, out of band, in real time. This essentially provides them with a complete visibility of all activities in their network. So, in summary, it's basically doing a lot of service, allows them to do a lot of service chaining as required to increase their the strength of their security stacks. One of the main benefits of this in terms of capital and operational expenses, it saves them quite a bit of capital expense because we're able to support multiple segments of, for example, 10 gig bypass, while providing even more appliance ports for the packet broker function in the same unit, where the incumbent, they required actually two boxes, one to control the devices actually traversing the traffic. So it allows them to basically use a single platform for this gatekeeper functionality. In terms of operational expenses, it removed the dependency on the network team for the security ops team to get access to that traffic. All right. Next question, next slide, please. For this specific example, it's a data guard for private protection. Essentially, this financial institution does a lot of e-commerce type of transactions, and they're very interested in terms of the historical because of past attacks that's happened or various network anomalies with malcontent. So what they were doing was essentially archiving a lot of that traffic, but they also needed to be compliant to PCI, for example, because there's a lot of sensitive information that's contained in their traffic. So they depended on the Niagara solution to be able to identify very accurately and granularly in terms of on the traffic that contain customer sensitive information. For example, if there's in the traffic social security number, specific credit cards, for example, Visa, Diners Club, and so forth, they need to be able to accurately pinpoint that type of traffic within the network traffic before being archived. In addition to being able to identify that, is being able to mask that critical sensitive information from the users while maintaining the header, for example, of interest on all the traffic that's being archived, so that they can detect any malicious or anomalies that's happened in the past. So with the Niagara solution, you can specify where in the packet you want to start masking and what part of that that packet you want to mask, for example. So it's very, very accurate in terms of what exactly gets masked prior to being encrypted. All right, next slide, please. On this specific case study, it's a high availability integration of a DDoS with their firewall for for another e-commerce type of company. They have a fairly large footprint in Latin America. Last count was 26 countries, and it is actually expanding. So they've got quite a mixed bag in terms of their network infrastructure that they're trying to strengthen their security stack on from various data centers and so forth. So essentially, they were implementing a next generation firewall using the 40 gate solution, as well as their DDoS mitigation at the edge when internet links. And a lot of the traffic was asymmetric, meaning it's a mixed bag in going in various directions. It wasn't very symmetrical. They also have mixed speeds and so forth. And this gave them quite a bit of challenge because obviously they're being very cost effective. They wanted a cost effective solution without having to force them to forklift every time the traffic demand increases. So with the Niagara solution, we were able to have them keep their existing infrastructure, even with the mixed speeds at 1 gig, 10 gig, and eventually they were planning to move to 40 gig in some of those network links. We were still be able to aggregate that and make sure that it goes through the security stack and further securing their network. So this was an example of a good example in terms of enabling a lot of these institutions to scale at a reasonable pace in terms of their technology cycles without having to refresh or forklift their existing infrastructure. Next slide, please. And this one's a little bit unique in terms of the actual application. So there's the main focus here was essentially to increase security on their applications communication across their infrastructure, which is the API layer. This is a national bank. I believe this is in Europe somewhere. There's they had a digital banking applications they're supporting from even other financial institutions. So the communication across their network is mostly done almost without the knowledge of some of the network teams, because everything is going through the application layer. So there was quite a bit of testing that was done. This is part of the use case for the penetration testing. For example, they've tested quite a bit of other tools, and the incumbent actually had lots of attacks on the API layer, even had quite a bit more false positive in most cases that rendered their critical applications basically decrease in performance, which results in loss of revenue for them. So in addition to that, they actually potentially expose them to new threats as well. So they did various trials. They found that bare metal deployments, even sometimes the cloud, it just took too long and it was too cumbersome for them to implement. And they wanted a turnkey solution that both their network operations and security operations can integrate seamlessly and quickly. And since they're already using packet brokers, taps, and filtering, those type of features, so they needed something that can be easily deployed with that solution already. So they went to Niagara in terms of our visibility virtualization using what we call our open visibility platform on the N2 series solution. This just allowed them to basically implement faster ability to host third-party type of applications. In this case, it's an API DDoS security tool to mitigate those attacks in real time. And in addition to that, it has the integrated packet broker, which allowed them to enable the precise identification, control of the application traffic, which is typically mostly e-commerce type transactions from the production traffic, so it doesn't oversaturate their API DDoS security tool, resulting in terms of the significant increase of their tool efficiency and accuracy. So the biggest takeaway for this is it provided them a single platform to be able to tap, filter, aggregate, and hosts the third-party application for security and network ops, and basically simplifies and shortens their time to deploy when they're adding another security layer to their infrastructure. So this is a very unique application and feature for the visibility industry in terms of being able to host third parties. So it's opened up the third-party applications can run natively right on the visibility solution. It makes it for easier and much quicker, faster deployment of being able to integrate third-party solutions. And this is they're able to deploy this in much quicker and much more locations in terms of in strengthening their security stack. All right.
Okay, we almost at the end of this webinar. So in terms of summary, we'll touch point, we'll see if we have questions, but in any way, if we look at the case studies, I think we understand that, the financial technology stack is highly complex, require mission critical environment. I mentioned previously that fintech definitely will drive new business model and will shake things up, especially when we're looking at the design of IT architecture to connect to anything, anywhere. The previous slide was interesting case because of the API model and sensitivity. Basically, API is definitely used to facilitate the sharing of data and fast product creation from months to hours. And this is the reason that financial arena is actually adapting this new model or distributed model. Entire financial infrastructure in terms of the network and the aspects, you could see that distributed model of on-prem and to cloud, obviously, given the fact of regulations, still on-prem or private data center and headquarters will still remain. But we see the hybrid infrastructure of physical and virtual really creating a lot of challenges. Basically, you could see that segmentation to protect critical assets, it's very, very complex in a way. Even the latest work from home for the financial sector, in fact, they did it very fast in terms of rapid adaptation. So remote teams could really use it as a vehicle to keep running, but at the same time, given the fact that all the effort and the capacity of the NOC and SOC operations suddenly drifted to this hybrid mode, remote teams really were moved into this more complicated architecture. Plus the fact that the vast majority of digital transformation, most of the remote customers suddenly highly dependent on this environment. So we could see that suddenly the increase on those tangible assets creating sensitivity. Specifically, we could see that denial of service attacks and how actually the capacity of the inline was increased in terms of the security stack chain. The other area that maybe we didn't really dive to, but the complete aspect of how the information is really collected, basically the complete forensics that is done on all the data flows and on the critical network and application and assets. So that's something which require much more packet broker sophistication by, again, doing the packet slicing, deduplication, given the fact that we're collecting traffic from the virtual tap, physical taps, and everything is aggregated. So the deduplication of this traffic is highly important. Masking that was mentioned previously. And application layer filtering, which is we can go full steam on up to layer 7 in order to sustain this visibility across the entire framework of the infrastructure. So as a summary of why Niagara, so I believe that I will not dive too much into the pitch here, but I think that first of all, as a company, we design, develop, and we're doing actually develop a purpose-built carrier grade network visibility and packet inspection products. So the whole offering is really designed to handle the mission critical networks. We have really strong tech alliance ecosystem given the nature of our location in Silicon Valley. I think that the last case study that Chris mentioned is actually open up this mode of what we call the agile open visibility solution, practically all in one. It's a hybrid packet broker, bypass, tap, and virtual tool hosting. So eventually you can deliver all the best of options in terms of visibility for both teams, for network operations, security operations. They can share the same platform in order to synchronize between them. And the other part in the feedback that we're getting from our customers and partners, basically a trusted partner for mission critical projects. So I assume this is the social proof and the reality of the field. All right, so with that said, basically we're moving to the last part. If we have questions, let me see.
Maybe just go ahead and see.
Yeah, we have a question. What would you say is one sample question that Niagara asked to get the customer interested? Do you see the question, Chris?
Yeah.
I think there is one. I'm just trying to see if
one example question
on that.
To the customer. I can take a stab at this.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, it's usually not a single question. Typically, when we're talking to prospects or future customers, we like to what we call multiple probing questions to kind of peeling the onion. We would typically ask if they're using any type of just obvious ones. Are you using any network tools, for example, to secure, monitor, or optimize your network? And that usually is the obvious answer is yes, of course we are. They're using firewall, IPS, or any kind of detect and response type of solutions, right? And then you'd ask is that, so how are you getting your traffic? And a majority of the time, it's typically spans from their existing switches or routers, for example. And for security, that's actually pretty bad, right? Because in a span, it's typically low priority. You're not getting a lot of or 100% of that traffic. In terms of the performance of their tool, and typically it's a lower speed than the network, and it can be saturated, and that's why the spans will not work. So they're aware of those gaps or holes. So we would ask back and say, well, how would you like to get 100% visibility of your network traffic and be able to identify and filter traffic of interest so that your tools you're maximizing the efficiency and accuracy of those tools. And then that typically will get them interested in terms of, okay, and what do you have in terms of how I can do that? And that's how we would explain and propose the Niagara solutions, Niagara visibility solutions.
Okay, I think
I don't know if you'd like to add something to that, but looks like
no, actually, yeah, looks like we answered perfectly the topic. Let me see if we have another areas of questions.
Oh, you're welcome, Keith.
Okay, it looks like we don't have any other question, or we were very clear as always, or
yeah, or they fell asleep.
Okay, so any questions that you would like to raise? 21, 22, 23. Okay.
Even after the fact, I think you'll have our information. If not, please go to the website. If you have, if you need further details, and one of the Niagara folks, including myself, will be more than happy to help you answer any questions and help you hopefully, win more opportunities for those who are partners, and any end user customers. We'd be more than happy to, help you with your challenges you may be facing.
All right, so with that, thanks everyone for attending. Chris, thank you very much. And that's all. We're closing this session. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.